A few years ago, I decided to take a vacation to a Southeast Asian island known for its beautiful beaches and crystal clear waters. I had booked my flight and hotel in advance and eagerly set off on this long-awaited trip. When the plane landed at the island's airport, I was stunned by the view. The azure sky, pristine beaches, and swaying coconut trees made me feel like I had entered paradise. After quickly checking into my hotel, I couldn't wait to change into my swimsuit and head straight to the beach. I spent a leisurely afternoon on the beach, basking in the sunlight and enjoying the sea breeze, feeling completely relaxed. In the evening, I returned to the hotel, took a shower, and decided to explore the town's night market. The night market was filled with tropical vibes, with various stalls selling local delicacies and handicrafts, bustling with people and a lively atmosphere. After walking for a while, I found a bar that looked quite charming and decided to go in for a drink and unwind. The bar was dimly lit, with soothing music that created a mysterious and romantic ambience. I ordered a cocktail unique to the locale and found a corner to sit in, enjoying the tranquility. After finishing my drink, I felt a bit tired and decided to head back to the hotel to rest. However, when I stepped out of the bar, I noticed that the streets had become much quieter, with the previously bustling crowds now dispersed, leaving only a few scattered pedestrians. I walked slowly along the route I had taken earlier, but the surroundings began to look unfamiliar. Perhaps due to the effects of the alcohol, I didn't realize I had taken a wrong turn and ended up in a narrow alley. This alley was very cramped, with tall walls on either side and dim lighting. As I walked further, I suddenly heard footsteps behind me, as if someone was following me. I stopped and looked back but saw nothing. Feeling uneasy, I quickened my pace, but the footsteps also quickened, growing closer. I knew I was in trouble. My heart started racing, and my breathing became rapid. I decided not to hesitate any longer and turned to run. The alley was long, and I ran as fast as I could, but the footsteps remained close behind me. After running for a while, I found a half-open door and quickly dashed inside, hoping to temporarily evade my pursuer. Once inside, I swiftly locked the door and looked around, finding myself in a dilapidated house filled with clutter and a musty smell in the air. I hid in a corner, holding my breath and trying to remain as silent as possible. The urgent footsteps outside indicated that the pursuer was still searching for me. I could hear them pacing outside the door, and someone even gently pushed the door, but when they found it locked, the footsteps gradually faded away. I breathed a sigh of relief but couldn't fully relax, fearing they might return. While hiding in the rundown house, I began to think about how to escape. It was clear this place wasn't safe, and I needed to find a more secure location. After a brief rest, I decided to leave through the back door. Carefully searching the house, I found a small door leading to another alley. I gently pushed the door open, revealing an even darker alley outside. At the end of the alley, I saw a faint light, which I judged to be the main street. To avoid attracting attention, I slowed my pace and quietly made my way towards the light. When I reached the end of the alley, I suddenly felt a chill down my spine. Turning around, I saw several dark figures approaching, seemingly armed. Realizing I couldn't escape, I ran as fast as I could, hoping to find other people or a safe place. After running a few steps, I spotted a small shop with lights on, and a few locals chatting at the entrance. I dashed towards them, filled with hope. When I reached them, they were clearly startled by my appearance. Before I could explain my danger, I felt a sharp pain and fell to the ground. I collapsed, my vision blurred, and felt a cold hand grab my wrist. I struggled desperately, but it was futile. At that moment, I heard the sound of police sirens, and soon a group of uniformed officers rushed over. The dark figures quickly scattered, disappearing into the night. I was helped up, my mind still hazy but aware that I had been saved. They took me to a safe place, where I was given medical attention and a warm drink. Gradually, my consciousness returned, and although I felt weak all over, I was filled with gratitude. I knew I had narrowly escaped a dire situation, and without timely rescue, the consequences would have been unimaginable. This harrowing experience dampened my enthusiasm for travel, but made me more vigilant and cautious. In future trips, I always avoided walking at night, especially in unfamiliar places. This ordeal served as a constant reminder to enjoy beautiful scenery while also staying aware of personal safety. A few days later, I returned home. Though my physical injuries healed over time, the terror of that night remained deeply etched in my memory. Every time the night was quiet, I couldn't help but recall the near-death experience, my heart filled with complex emotions. Sometimes I wondered what my fate would have been if I hadn't encountered those kind strangers that night. This trip taught me many things. I learned to stay calm in difficult situations and to cherish every moment of life. Although that night was terrifying, it became an important lesson in my life, making me more careful and cautious in future travels. 2 years ago, I decided to embark on a solo journey along the famous Route 66 in the United States. Known for its rich history and diverse landscapes, this road has attracted countless travelers. To fully experience this iconic route, I chose an RV as my mode of transportation and temporary home. The first few days of my journey were delightful. I drove through several states, marveling at the stunning scenery along the way. Whether it was the majestic deserts, vast plains, or quaint old towns, everything filled me with a sense of freedom and excitement. Each night, I would find a safe spot to park, cook a simple dinner, and then rest in the RV. One day I was driving along a relatively remote section of Route 66. The area was sparsely populated with only endless road and desolate landscapes in sight. As the sky darkened, I decided to find a place to park for the night. Up ahead, I spotted an abandoned gas station. Although it was dilapidated, it seemed like a suitable spot to stop. I parked the RV next to the gas station and got out to check the surroundings. There were no other vehicles or people around, and the silence was almost eerie. By now, it was completely dark, with only the sound of the wind blowing through the wasteland. I returned to the RV, locked the doors, and prepared to make dinner. After eating, I sat inside reading for a while before getting ready for bed. As the night grew deeper, a strange tension filled the RV. Maybe it was the isolation of the place, but I felt uneasy. Lying in bed, I tried to relax but couldn't fall asleep. Just then, I heard a faint noise coming from outside the RV. I listened carefully, and the sound became clearer. It seemed like someone was gently tapping on the door. My heart raced as I held my breath, afraid to make any noise. Slowly, I sat up and peered through the window, but saw nothing in the pitch black outside. The tapping continued for a few minutes, and then suddenly stopped. My anxiety increased, unsure of what was happening outside. I took out my phone to call for help, but there was no signal. Feeling utterly isolated, I could only wait silently, listening for any further sounds. After a while, the tapping resumed, this time louder and more urgent. I knew I couldn't just sit there any longer. I quickly got dressed, grabbed a defensive tool from the RV, and cautiously approached the door. Taking a deep breath, I flung the door open and rushed outside. The night was silent, with only the gentle breeze. I looked around and saw a shadow moving in the corner of the gas station. The figure seemed suspicious, and fear gripped me. I decided not to stay any longer, quickly returning to the RV, starting the engine, and driving away from that eerie place. As I drove away, I didn't dare look back, only focused on finding a safe place. Eventually, I saw a small motel with lights on up ahead. Relieved, I parked the RV in front of the motel and walked into the lobby. The motel owner saw my panicked state and asked what had happened. I briefly described my experience, and he frowned, mentioning that the area was indeed not very safe, with similar incidents occurring recently. He suggested that I stay in the motel for the night and continue my journey in the morning. Following his advice, I spent the night at the motel. Although I was still a bit scared, being around other people made me feel much safer. Early the next morning, I hit the road again, continuing my Route 66 adventure, but with heightened caution and awareness. I'll never forget that terrifying night in Chicago. It was my first solo trip to the States, and what should have been an exciting adventure nearly turned into my last rodeo. It was day 3 in the Windy City. I'd spent the first couple days hitting up all the usual tourist spots: Cloud Gate, Michigan Avenue, Willis Tower, Millennium Park, the works. I was totally digging the architecture and culture vibe of the place. Every moment felt fresh and awesome. Come evening on day 3, I figured I'd check out the nightlife. I'd heard Chicago's bars were legit, so I decided to give them a whirl. I dolled myself up, slipped on this cute navy dress with a light white cardigan and some comfy flats, threw my hair in a messy bun, put on this silver necklace my mom gave me, gave myself a once-over in the mirror, thought looking good, grabbed my purse and headed out. As night fell, the city lit up like a Christmas tree. The streets were buzzing with people. I was just strolling along, soaking in the city vibes. The air was a mix of food smells, car exhaust, and flowers, typical city cocktail. You know, I ducked into this swanky looking jazz bar and got lost in the music, booze, and good times. Time flew by, and before I knew it, it was nearly midnight. I decided it was time to call it night. Stepping out of the bar, I felt a bit woozy, probably from the drinks. I took a deep breath of the cool night air, trying to clear my head. The streets had emptied out quite a bit, but I didn't think much of it. Just wanted to get back to my hotel. I started walking back the way I thought I'd come, but pretty quickly realized I'd taken a wrong turn somewhere. The buildings around me started looking unfamiliar, and the streets got quieter and quieter. I started to freak out a little, reached for my phone to check the map, only to find it dead as a doornail. Panic started to set in. I picked up the pace, hoping to stumble across something familiar or find someone to ask for help. That's when I heard footsteps behind me. At first, I figured it was just another person out late, but then I realized they were getting closer. My heart started racing, and I sped up without even thinking about it. I could feel whoever it was right behind me, their breathing loud in the quiet night. Suddenly, a strong hand grabbed my shoulder. I spun around, terrified, and found myself face to face with this big dude. In the dim streetle twilight, I couldn't make out his face, but his eyes. Man, they were scary as hell. He was holding something that glinted in the dark, probably metal. My mind went totally blank, pure fear took over. I tried to run, but this guy was way stronger. He shoved me into a nearby alley, and my back slammed against the cold brick wall. The pain made me gasp. I could smell the booze and cigarettes on him, which only made me more scared. In that moment, I really thought I was done for. My whole life flashed before my eyes, family, friends, all the everyday stuff I'd taken for granted. I was kicking myself for coming out alone, for not being more careful. I even started imagining how the news would report it, how heartbroken my parents would be. Just when I thought it was all over, I heard police sirens in the distance. That screeching sound cut through the quiet night like a knife. My attacker froze up for a second when he heard it. I saw my chance and pushed him away with everything I had, then just ran for my life. I don't know how far I ran, just that I kept going until my legs felt like jelly and I thought I might collapse. When I finally stopped, I found myself in a busier area. There were people on the street, and a 24-hour convenience store nearby. I stumbled in and asked the clerk for help. The clerk was a real sweetheart. Seeing how shaken up I was, she called the cops right away. While we waited, she gave me a hot coffee and let me use her phone to call my hotel. I sat in the corner of the store, hands shaking as I held the coffee cup, tears streaming down my face. The cops showed up pretty quick. They listened to my story and told me I was lucky to have gotten away when I did. They advised me to be more careful in the future, especially when out alone at night in an unfamiliar city. Then they escorted me back to my hotel. Back in my room, I locked the door, drew the curtains, and turned on every light. Even though I was safe, I was still scared out of my mind. I called my family, hearing their voices helped calm me down a bit. That night, I barely slept a wink. Every little noise had me jumping out of my skin. This whole thing taught me a lesson I'll never forget. Since then, I've become way more cautious, whether I'm traveling at home or abroad. I've learned to stay alert in unfamiliar cities, avoid sketchy areas at night, and always research the local safety situation and emergency contacts before I go anywhere. More than anything, this experience gave me a new appreciation for life. I started cherishing every ordinary day and being grateful for the people around me. I realized just how precious life is. Sometimes you don't get it until you're on the edge of losing it all. Looking back, that Chicago trip was a real wake-up call. It taught me how to balance adventure with caution, how to enjoy traveling while staying safe. It became a turning point in my life, influencing a lot of my decisions and actions since then. Now, whenever I set off on a new adventure, the memory of that night still pops up. It doesn't scare me anymore, but it reminds me to be careful and appreciate what I've got. I'm grateful for that second chance to keep exploring the world while valuing every moment.